There's a place in Mexico where signals stop working. A patch of the Mapimi Desert where the modern world simply dissolves into the sand. People thought that was the mystery. It wasn't. Deep in the desert, inside what's known as the zone of silence, radios go quiet. GPS fails. Even compasses start to drift, their needles spinning aimlessly as if searching for a north that no longer exists. For decades, people have blamed magnetic anomalies, solar interference, high deposits of magnetite, anything that makes sense, anything that lets them sleep at night. But the stories that come out of that place don't make sense. They defy logic, physics, and sanity. Tonight, on Mr. Wick and Whispers, this isn't a countdown. This isn't a list of urban legends. This is one story. A group of friends entered that desert together, filming everything, laughing, certain that science or simple bad luck was the only thing they had to fear. Only one of them came back, and they've never explained why, until now. Stay until the end, because what was found later, discarded in the dust, changes everything we think we know about the silence. The silence that followed them back. We weren't supposed to go that far in. That's what I keep telling myself now, staring at the walls of my apartment, waiting for a sound that never comes. At the time, it felt like a normal trip. 5 of us, close friends, the kind of people who had been through everything together. Road trips, late nights, stupid decisions that turned into stories we'd laugh about for years. There was Mark, the guy who always had a camera glued to his hand, Sarah, who lived for the outdoors, Jason, the skeptic, and Chloe, who just wanted to see the stars away from the city lights. And then there was me. The plan was simple: drive out toward the zone of silence, hike in a few miles, film some footage for Mark's channel, maybe stay overnight. Nothing extreme, just enough to say we'd done it. We'd all heard the stories: radios failing, strange lights, people claiming they felt watched. But none of us actually believed it. We were 20-somethings with high-end gear and a sense of invincibility. At least, not then. The first sign something was off came before we even stepped out of the truck. No signal. That part wasn't surprising. We expected it. Our phones became expensive glass paperweights instantly. GPS blanked out, showing us hovering in a grey void. It was just empty bars and a quiet kind of disconnection that felt almost peaceful at first. It felt like freedom. But then, the radio cut out too. Not static, not interference, not that fuzzy white noise you get between stations, just silence. Like someone had flipped a switch in the middle of a song. We joked about it. Mark laughed and said it felt like the world had just forgotten about us. He joked that we were finally off the grid. At the time, that sounded funny. It doesn't anymore. Being forgotten by the world is one thing. Being noticed by something else is another. We started walking just before sunset. The desert stretched out in every direction, flat, endless, and too still. It was beautiful in a haunting way, the sky turning a bruised purple. But as the light faded, the atmosphere shifted. There was no wind, no insects, no distant sounds of traffic or planes, just the crunch of our boots against the dry ground, a sound that felt unnaturally loud, like we were walking on sun-bleached bones. At first, we talked, joked, filmed clips of ourselves looking lost. But the deeper we went, the quieter it got. Not because we chose to stop talking, it just happened. Conversations died mid-sentence. Thoughts drifted off before they were finished. It was as if the desert was an acoustic sponge, soaking up our voices, our laughter, and eventually, our very will to speak. I remember looking at Sarah at one point. She was staring off into the distance, eyes unfocused. I asked if she was okay. She nodded, but it took a second too long, like the signal between her brain and her body was lagging. We set up camp about 3 miles in. Nothing unusual, just a small clearing, a few rocks, enough space for the tents. We lit a small fire, the crackle of the wood sounding sharp and defensive against the oppressive quiet. We unpacked some food, but none of us were really hungry. That's when things started to feel wrong. Not dangerous, not yet, just off. Mark kept checking his camera. He was getting frustrated. The digital display was flickering. It wasn't recording anything useful anymore, just static, black frames and weird digital artifacts that looked like faces if you stared too long. Jason tried to joke again, something about aliens or government experiments. No one laughed, not even him. His voice sounded thin, like it was being squeezed. The silence wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside us. My own thoughts felt slower, heavier, like moving through something thick, like mental molasses. And then there was the feeling, that constant, low pressure against my eardrums. Like being at the bottom of a deep pool, or like being watched by something so large you couldn't see its edges. It started with Sarah. She stood up suddenly, staring into the darkness just beyond the firelight. Not panicked, not scared, just focused. Like she was listening to a frequency we couldn't hear. We asked her what she saw. She didn't answer. She didn't even blink. She just shook her head slowly, a rhythmic, mechanical motion, and sat back down. But she didn't look at us. She looked through us. After that, no one said much. The fire died down, and we retreated to our tents. But sleep felt impossible. The air felt charged, like the moment before a massive lightning strike that never comes. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. There was no clock, no phone, just darkness, and the feeling that something was missing. The fire had burned down to cold embers. The desert was still, too still. Even the sound of my own breathing felt like an intrusion. I stepped out of the tent, the cold air hitting my face like a wet cloth. I expected to see the others asleep, but the site was empty. Then I saw them, all 4 of them. They weren't in their tents, they were out there, about 30 yards away, standing in the scrub, facing the same direction, away from the camp, toward the heart of the zone. They weren't moving. They weren't talking. They were just standing there, perfectly still, like statues carved from the desert night. I called out to them. My voice felt small, swallowed instantly by the void. No response. I walked closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. That's when I realized they weren't looking at anything. Their eyes were wide open, reflecting the starlight, but they were empty. There was no them behind the eyes. I touched Mark's shoulder, and his skin felt unnaturally cold, like he'd been standing there for hours. He flinched, just slightly. Then slowly, very slowly, he turned his head toward me. Not all the way, just enough to see me out of the corner of his eye. And in a voice that didn't sound like his own, a voice that sounded like a recording of a recording, thin and metallic, he whispered, "You hear it too." right? I didn't. At least, I don't think I did. But in that moment, a vibration started in my teeth. A low, sub-harmonic hum that felt like it was coming from the ground itself. Something in me, some primal lizard brain instinct, screamed at me not to answer, not to acknowledge the sound. The next few hours don't make sense, not in a way I can explain clearly or chronologically. Time didn't feel right. It felt like it was folding in on itself. Moments stretched out for what felt like years, and then hours disappeared in the blink of an eye. We tried to leave, I remember that much. I remember the frantic, desperate urge to get back to the truck, packing up, moving fast, or trying to. But no matter which direction we went, it felt the same. The same gnarled cactus, the same cracked earth, the same oppressive pressure on our skulls. At some point, we stopped talking completely. It wasn't a choice we made, it was a realization. Words didn't belong there. Using language felt like trying to use a flashlight in a sunburst. It was pointless, eclipsed by whatever was happening to us. One by one, they started drifting. It wasn't like a horror movie where a monster drags someone into the shadows. It was worse. It was quiet. They weren't running. They weren't getting lost. They were just separating. Like they were being pulled by invisible threads in different directions. I tried to follow Sarah. I grabbed her arm, but she pulled away with a strength that didn't make sense for her size. She didn't look back. She didn't acknowledge my existence. She just kept walking, her pace steady and rhythmic, heading toward a horizon that never seemed to get closer. I watched her until the darkness swallowed her completely. 1 minute she was a silhouette against the stars. The next, she was just gone. I called for Mark, for Chloe, for Jason. But my voice wouldn't work. It was as if the zone had finally decided I'd had my turn with sound. The hum in my teeth grew louder. It became a roar that I could only hear in my bones. The last thing I remember before everything went black was that feeling. Not fear, not panic. Fear is for things you can fight or flee from. This was different. It was acceptance. A heavy, suffocating realization that I didn't need to understand. That the mystery of the zone of silence wasn't a puzzle to be solved. It was a digestive process. When I woke up, I was alone. I was lying on my back, staring at a sky that was now a pale, dusty blue. I was back near the edge of the desert, miles from where we'd camped. I don't know how I got there. My boots were worn through to the socks. My hands were raw and bloody from crawling over rocks I don't remember touching. I pulled my phone from my pocket. The screen cracked as I touched it, but a single bar of signal flickered back to life. The world rushed back in. The sound of wind, distant birds, the hum of a far-off engine. Normal, beautiful, mundane sounds. But something was wrong. I knew it immediately. Not around me, inside me. Days passed before anyone found the others, or what was left of the expedition. The authorities found the truck first, then the camp. Then, over the next week, they found the bodies, one by one. There were no signs of struggle, no mountain lions, no foul play, no clear cause of death at all. Just empty expressions. Their eyes were still open, staring at the sky with that same hollow focus I'd seen that night. The coroners said it was dehydration, exposure, disorientation, the standard checklist of things that make sense to people who sit in air-conditioned offices. But the experts didn't see what I saw. They didn't see the way the sand seemed to avoid their bodies, as if even the earth was wary of them. They didn't feel the vibration that stayed in my marrow for months. And the worst part? The part that keeps me up when the sun goes down? I still don't know what happened out there. I don't know if they were taken or if they just ceased to be. I don't know if I'm the lucky one for coming back, or if I'm just a witness left behind to carry the silence. Because sometimes, when my apartment is perfectly still, when the fridge stops humming and the street noise dies down, I swear I can almost hear it. That same low, impossible sound. It's not in the room. It's not in the air. It's coming from inside my own head. The zone doesn't just stop signals, it replaces them. And I think, deep down, I never really left. I think a part of me is still out there, standing in the dark, staring at nothing, waiting for the hum to become a voice. I look at the footage Mark left behind, the stuff the police let me keep. Most of it is just blackness, but there's one clip right before the camera died. You can't see much, just the edge of the campfire. But in the audio, underneath our breathing, there's a sound. It isn't the wind. It isn't us. It sounds like thousands of voices whispering the same word at once. I've played it 1,000 times. I still can't make out the word. But I have a feeling that one day, when the silence gets loud enough, I won't have to guess. I'll just know. And then, I'll be just like them. They said the zone of silence only affects signals, that it's just a fluke of geology and magnetism. They tell you that whatever happens out there, stays out there, buried under the shifting Mexican sands. But that's not true, because something followed him back. Something lived in the space where his friends' souls used to be. Just like that moment, when those 4 people stood in the dark, staring at nothing, listening to a frequency no human was ever meant to tune into. And maybe that's the real mystery of the Mapimi. Not what's hidden in the desert, not the strange rocks or the failed technology, but what the desert leaves behind inside the people who are lucky enough to survive it. It leaves a void, a silence that eventually grows until it consumes everything else. And there's one thing that's even scarier than that story. Not watching another video like this one. Because the next one dives into places where people didn't just disappear. They were never supposed to be found at all. We're going deeper into the maps where the ink runs dry and the legends turn into warnings. If this story stayed with you, if you felt that low hum while you listened, hit like and subscribe to Mr. Wick and Whispers. We'll keep exploring the shadows as long as you're brave enough to follow. And let us know in the comments, what do you think they heard out there? Was it a message? A warning? Or just the sound of the universe looking back? Tell us your theories before it goes silent.